Alright guys, so today we get to actually do a first look at an IEM from the company IO Acoustics. Now we've checked out their Volair in the past, and that was kind of like a premium IEM that used one dynamic driver, 4 balanced armature drivers, 4 electrostatic drivers, and was using a 4-way crossover system. But this new one, which is the Cello, uses 16 balanced armature drivers and is also using a 6-way crossover system. And the term cello in Italian actually means sky or heaven. So that already kind of makes me feel like this is going to be a very spacious IEM just based off that definition. But we'll talk about that a little bit more once we get to the sound. Now, I don't know the actual release date of these yet. They were showing off at CanJam, which I did not get to see them there. I've had them now for a little bit, and it's enough to kind of give a first look at these, kind of talk about them, kind of give my opinion on them. But I am going to say they do come in at $999. So we're just going to go ahead and consider these $1,000. Now, I am going to say the packaging on these comes in a box that's very similar to the Volairs. It kind of resembles basically like a jewelry box. It just has these drawers that you pull out. You can see up top comes in this really nice leather case. This is what houses the IEMs. You can put the cable and different ear tips in here. You pull out the next drawer, and then you have 6 different styles of ear tips. Now this is very important in getting the sound that you want. I actually had to go through each one of these to kind of find the one that I like the best. There is one set of foam ear tips. Each style has a small, medium, and large, so there's plenty to go through here. And then the cable that they've included is an 8-strand pure silver Teflon self-twisted cable. It does use a 2-pin connection, which, you know, I've said this before, this is probably the most common plug-in when it comes to an IEM. And then inside the box it has a 3.5mm plug-in to plug into whatever device you're using. It also comes with a 4.4mm balanced adapter, and it also comes with a 1/4-inch adapter. So basically any type of plug-in that you're going to want to use, you have all of those options right out of the box. Now the IEMs themselves, as far as the design of these, I'm a huge fan of. It's very simple, it's very clean, it kind of sticks to this grayish theme. It is a 3D resin printed body. It's very smooth, and then the outside of it kind of feels like an aluminum kind of like faceplate to it, and it looks like it has grills where you would think that the music is kind of escaping, kind of like an open back, but I didn't notice any kind of sound leakage with these, so I guess this is just like simply for looks. But I am gonna say the IEM itself looks a little big, but when you pick them up, there's literally like no weight to these. So even when you put them in your ears, I didn't notice like, you know, any discomfort. It wasn't a pair that I found that I needed to kind of like self-adjust because the weight's kind of moving them around. Basically, once I put them in my ears, I had no issues with these moving around, and I could use them for a long period of time and not actually feel I needed to kind of take a break. Now, if you're wondering if you are going to need an amp to actually use these, I'm going to say with pretty much any kind of audiophile gear like this, especially a pair of IEMs or more studio grade style headphones, you're always going to want to use an amp. But just technically by the numbers, it does have an impedance level of only 15.3 ohms with a sensitivity of 119.5 decibels. So on paper, technically you don't need an amp. You could plug straight into a phone or a laptop or a tablet. You're going to get really decent volume out of these, but you're not going to fully get the most out of them as far as the lows, the mids, and the highs unless you plug these into an amp. With that, let's just kind of go ahead and talk about the sound a little bit. Now, I did use these with a FIO K11 amp. It's the amp that I used at my desktop. It gives me the option to use them in both the 4.4mm balance plug-in and then also the 3.5 by using the 1/4-inch adapter. And I'm going to tell you this, there is 2 different experiences depending on how you use them. So with the balance plug-in, it is actually pretty close to neutral. It's not really trying to elevate anything too much. The bass just doesn't have a whole lot of body when you use it in this mode. So you can tell that it's just kind of aimed specifically at details. But with using it with the 3.5mm plug-in, this definitely brought everything out. It made it a more dynamic IEM, basically just added a lot more character to the sound overall, and it makes it just a lot more fun to use. But I would say, like, if I was going to use them maybe in a studio environment, I would use the balance plugin. But the 3.5mm gave me really nice punchy bass that is still well controlled. Now, I'm going to say, depending on certain tracks, the sub bass could come out a little bit more, and it would have more of a slightly loose sound to it, kind of gives it a subwoofer type effect. But for the most part, the bass is all pretty well controlled. It's tightened up, it's fast, it's very accurate, and it works great across all genres. But it definitely lends itself well to rock and metal, where it can keep up with all the beats of the drums. But again, in certain genres, the sub bass starts to kind of leak out a little bit, and it just, again, I think kind of morphs itself to work with all these different genres. Now, the mids on these are slightly pushed forward. It is definitely not like completely in your face, so it doesn't feel like it's escaped from the rest of the music and the vocalist is like right there in front of you. But you can tell that they are a step or two in front of everything else. There's a lot of characteristics and details in vocalists, and it really does do a good job of bringing out like acoustic instruments. And then mixing this with the treble, which I kind of expected to be really bright. I kind of expected these to have like an overly harsh sound because it's using, 16 balanced armature drivers, but it still is very well controlled. Now, it does have a brightness to it, but it never got to that point of being harsh or, having the sibilant sound with S's or anything like that. It still was very smooth overall, and I just absolutely love using these. And on top of using them for music, one thing that I really enjoyed using them for was for gaming. Because of all the balanced armature drivers, you're hearing all of the subtle details and footsteps, and rustling of leaves and different sounds, and the soundstage and the sound imaging on this pair is also extremely impressive, because usually something that starts to kind of lend itself a little bit more towards a dynamic tuning, you start to feel a little more isolated, a little bit more closed in, and it doesn't feel as open. But I definitely felt like I was in a very large room, and the awareness of where different sounds were coming from, I was just super impressed with how well it was handling that. So my overall opinion, it's kind of hard to give my overall opinion because I haven't like fully tested these yet. I was just left very impressed, and it kind of, again, it was one of those pairs that makes you want to go back and listen to your music catalog. It's fun to use with gaming and movies, TV shows. So it's a very well-rounded pair, and you could tell that, they're definitely going for that flagship sound. If you are interested in checking these out, right now all I can do is just link you to their website because I don't know the actual release date yet. But guys, that kind of wraps up my first look at the IO Acoustics Cello. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.